Tonight I wanted to talk to you guys about punishments in Amish schools and what kind of punishments the teacher would use to keep the kids in line. And remember that these punishments were all sanctioned and approved of by the parents. And if you got a spanking in an Amish school, once you got home, you get a spanking from your parents as well. That was the rules. Like your parents let you know this, that if you did something bad enough to get a whooping at school, you get one at home as well. So it's going to be a double whammy. You try extra hard to be nice at school, you know. Well, it didn't work for me because I got spankings in 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. But that's a story for another video. I want to talk about the minor punishments, like putting your head down on a desk, closing your eyes for 15 minutes during recess. So we had two 15-minute recesses, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and we also had a noon recess that was an hour long. So the reason you'd have to put your head down on a desk could be for running up and down the stairs, which I've had to do in the past. Speaking Amish during school or during recess, we weren't allowed to speak Amish unless it was Friday. Fridays we had German lessons, German reading, spelling, and even some German cursive writing that we had to practice. I remember this one teacher, we had a little chart, and every time we'd get caught speaking Amish or Dutch, we'd have to put a little mark beside our name. And if we had 3 marks in 1 week, then we'd have to put our head down on the desk. And another reason I've had to do it was one time my one teacher caught me talking to one of my buddies, and I said, Gene, made a machine, Joe, made it go, Art, let a fart, and blew it all apart. And she thought that was bad, and she questioned me for a couple minutes during recess, and then made me put my head on the desk for the rest of the recess because she said I used bad words. Other minor punishments would include putting your nose in a chalk ring up on the chalkboard, or standing in the corners. Or if you were really, really bad, you had to move your desk to the front of the classroom, right in front of the teachers. Or in the worst cases I have seen, was right beside the teacher's desk. They had to face the classroom like the teacher, and the teacher was sitting right beside them watching their every move. I never had to do that, but a cousin of mine did, and it looked scary. Like, he was up there for like a whole week. It looked like jail, you know. In the next video, I'll talk about ear pulling, and then I'll do some videos about spankings. Thank you guys. Hopefully everybody has a good day. So I wanted to talk about ear pulling, hair pulling, and other mid-level punishments that would be given by some Amish teachers. And sorry if this is insensitive to some people, but this stuff actually happened to me when I was a kid. And I had this one teacher, it was Ben Miller's Lydia, and I never really did like her, and I didn't respect her, and that was probably what caused a lot of the issues between me and her. I was in 6th and 7th grade when she was the teacher. And so in 6th grade, early on in 6th grade, I just had to test her out, and I used to do this thing with my little short stubby pencils. I would stick them in behind the door hinge and then go to shut the door, and it would snap that pencil in half and break it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, And she saw me doing it one time. She's like, stop doing that. You're going to mess up the door. I said, no, I won't. She's like, if you do that again, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I said, fine, I won't do it. Well, I had this one pencil that had like different NFL team helmets on it. And it was a pretty fancy pencil for an Amish school. Most of the kids had just regular yellow number 2 pencils. We had a Bent and Dent grocery store, and I had gotten this pencil with some of the stuff that we got with our store. So, of course, I took it and used it for myself in school, because it was fancy. I was proud of that pencil. Well, when it wore down to a short, stubby pencil, on the way out the door one evening after school, I told my buddy, I was like, here, watch this. And I stuck it in behind the door because the teacher wasn't around. And, I smashed it in the door. Didn't think nothing of it. I think I threw both pieces of the broken pencil down by the door. Went home. The next morning, first recess rolls around, the teacher said, you need to stay in during recess. And I was like, oh crap, what did I do? Of course, I'm trying to rack my brain. I didn't remember that pencil. She hands me these 2 pieces of broken pencil. She said, what are these? I said, looks like my pencil. She's like, why is it broken? I said, I may have put it in the door downstairs. I forgot I wasn't supposed to. And she was like, well, the door's broken. And it had pulled the screws out of the hinges. I had to go over to my uncle's house during noon recess, get a screwdriver, tighten the screws back up, and then take it back over to him. It took up pretty much all my recess time. So she was like, what do you think your punishment should be? Should I just spank you, or do you think an ear pulling might be good enough? I said, an ear pulling would probably be suitable. I, prefer that over spanking. She said, okay. And she grabbed a hold of my ear, and she twisted it almost in a circular motion, and to this day I can't hear properly out of this ear. But stay tuned for part 3. Welcome to part 3 of Amish School punishments. Today we're going to talk about the first time that I got a whooping when I was in 3rd grade. We were outside at recess playing, and I see this girl that's in my grade, and she is, she's running to the outhouse, and she's like holding her hands behind her, and I'm like, ooh, she's got to take said the S word, and she didn't like that. And I didn't even know, but she went and told the teacher. Later that night when school ended, the teacher said, oh, gee, can you stay after school? And I was like, oh, crap, what did I do? And it was like one of the first times that I've had to do that. So I was really nervous. Everybody left. Took like 10, 15 minutes for everybody to get ready and leave. Then the teacher asked me if I used the S word. And I said yes, but I didn't mean anything by it. Like I wasn't using it to curse, just to describe something. And she said, well, that's not very, that's not nice. It's not proper. And this teacher's name was Anna Mary Byler. Anna Mary was an old maid, and she had never been married. And she was somewhat strict. She didn't like that I used that S word. And so she asked me, she said, when have you ever heard that word? Like, does your dad use it? And I thought, well, hey, here's my way to get out of this. And I said, yeah, my dad uses it sometimes when he's mad, because he did. And I figured I'd be okay now, since my dad used it. Well, she said she had to give me a spanking anyway. So she gets her paddle down and she starts spanking me, and she's crying. She's crying through the whole time. She's like, I don't want to, but I have to, just crying, sobbing. And it almost made me laugh, because she was crying harder than I was the whole time. So that was my first experience getting a whooping in school. And I did not get a whooping that night when I got home, because I think my dad felt bad because I kind of ratted him out and said he uses the word. He didn't like that when he heard that. But I don't think he thought it was necessary to give me a whooping because of using that word. I didn't use it maliciously, at least not. I didn't use it like just to cuss, Anna Mary was not married at that time, but then her first cousin, who was married, died of breast cancer, and she ended up marrying her widower. And then a couple years ago, she also died of breast cancer. So may she rest in peace. My 3rd grade teacher, Anna Mary Byler. Next time, I will talk about the whooping I got in 5th grade when I was really, really bad, and I really deserved it that time. So stay tuned. Thank you. How's it going? Tonight, I wanted to talk to you guys about the second time I got a whooping in school in 5th grade. I would have been 10 years old. And me and some of the other kids were acting out one evening. We were bored. We had most of our classes done. And it had come to my attention that if you put a number 2 pencil above your lip, like that you can pretend you have a mustache. And I was doing that, and I was looking to one side and to the other, and I was making the other kids laugh. And a couple of the kids, my brother and my cousin, actually laughed out loud. And the teacher, her name was Effie Yoder. She was a really sweet girl, 18 or 19 years old probably. And she was really short, though. I was as tall as she was in the 5th grade at 10 years old. And we were roughly the same weight. And I wasn't really scared of her, So she made me go and put my nose in a ring up on the blackboard. And then she made my brother and my cousin go on opposite sides of that same wall and stand in the corner. Well, we were all in a line, so all we had to do is look from one side to the other, and we could all see each other, and we were giggling and laughing, And she got upset, and she walked over behind my brother, who was in first grade, mind you, and David, my cousin, was in fourth grade. And she walked over behind my brother and yanked on his hair, and he stopped laughing immediately, and it sounded like it hurt. And then she walked over behind me, and I was still snickering, and I stopped. I stopped snickering the minute she stopped behind me. And she paused there for a long minute, and not a peep out of me. I was real close, and then she walked on over to my cousin, and he stopped snickering as well, but then he busted out laughing, and she yanked his hair for a minute. And then, pretty soon after that, it was time to go home. So we were all downstairs putting our boots on, getting our coats, and we were talking about going Big Bill Ritchie on her. And if you don't know who Big Bill Ritchie is, he was a character in the Laura Ingalls Wilder stories. The book about Almanza Wilder, Laura Ingalls' future husband. Our teacher used to read that whole series to us for reading, or like story time after lunch. After a noon recess, we had a story time every day, and teacher would read for 10 or 15 minutes. And she was reading that series that year, and she had read the story about Big Bill Ritchie. He was this kid who would go and beat up the teachers and make the teachers quit. Until one time a teacher came in that had a bullwhip, and he taught Big Bill Ritchie a lesson, and actually taught him many lessons, because Big Bill Ritchie then attended school. Welcome to Amish School Punishments Part 5. This is the part where I got my butt whooped for the second time when I was in 5th grade. If you haven't seen the first part of this story, click on this comment for Part 4. But the night before, we were talking about the teacher downstairs, talking about going Big Bill Ritchie on her. One of the kids said he was going to kick her to the moon or something like that. Just talking crap, and we were little kids. I was in 5th grade, my cousin was in 4th, and my brother was in 1st. And so the teacher comes downstairs before we made it out the door and hands us these pink slips that you sent home to the parents. And they had on a request for a parent-teacher meeting that night. And so my dad went to this meeting. He didn't get home until later. I was already in bed. The next morning, I was doing chores. I still remember him sitting there milking his cow and asking me what happened. And then telling me he knew all about it. He heard the teacher's version. And that he authorized her to give us a whooping, and that we're going to get our butts whooped. Because he told the teacher personally to do it. And that when we get home, it's going to happen again. So I dreaded going to school that morning. It was about a 3-mile drive. It seemed like it was the fastest I ever made it to school, And I was hoping it would take all day, but it sure didn't. So we get to school, put the horse away, and we have roll call, say the Lord's Prayer, sing 2 hymns, and then the teacher's ready to start the day. She says, anybody who was talking about me last night can go down to the furnace room. So me and my cousin and my little brother, my cousin was in 4th grade, my little brother was in 1st. We all head down to the furnace room. And when she gets down there, her face is all red, and we're kind of sitting there kind of laughing and giggling a little bit because, she's so short, she doesn't seem like a real threat. She's like a kid herself, as tall as she is. And, she was a little bit taller. But she's like, what's so funny? And we were like, nothing. And she's like, who wants it first? And my little brother pops up at like 6 years old. I do. And her face gets beet red when he said that. And man, she lit into him. And by the time she was done, he was screaming. And I really wished I had asked for first because it looked like it hurt. And then it was my cousin's turn. And I could tell she was just getting warmed up. By the time she got around to me, she was really warmed up, and I have never gotten a whooping that I remembered as well as that whooping. And let's just say that the rest of that year, that teacher had no issues out of us whatsoever. And we actually kind of became friends, and I had a lot of respect for her. To this day, she's one of my favorite teachers. But we were crying for 5 minutes after we get back upstairs in the class. We couldn't even sit down. We tried sitting down, and then we had to lift us off the seat because that's how bad it hurt. So that's the story about when I got whooped in 5th grade and the time I really deserved it. Welcome to Amish School Punishments Part 6. So in 6th and 7th grade, I had this teacher named Lydia Miller. And she was kind of somewhat of a pain. She was a very strict teacher, wasn't very nice or friendly. And she's the one who twisted my ear so badly. And before seventh grade started, my dad, who was the school board president for that year, was in charge of hiring the teachers, or the teachers. So he asked me if I was okay with Lydia being a teacher for the second time. And I said, sure. I mean, I, respected that he asked me. I don't think he would have cared either way what I said, but he did ask me. Well, in seventh grade, come Christmas time, we were practicing for a Christmas program. That's something we did every year in our schools. Each kid had to recite a poem, and we all had to sing songs. So we'd practice this in school, in class, basically. Not during recess, but during class. So this particular day, we were practicing for like an hour and a half or 2 hours because some of the kids could not remember their poems, and we had to do it like twice. And we were all thirsty, and it was about 10 minutes before recess. When we finished practicing, we all went back to our desks, and we asked the teacher, we said, can we go get some water? So instead of sending everybody out and just having recess, she sends 2 kids, one to get a pitcher of water and a glass. And they were walking around giving water to everybody. We all had to drink out of that same glass, couldn't even rinse it off or anything. And it kind of made us a little irritated, I think. But it reminded us of communion as well. See, in communion church, all the members of church stand up, and the deacon goes around handing them each a piece of bread, and they eat it, and they bow, and then they sit down. Well, the same with the wine. They hand them a cup of wine, everybody takes a sip, and then they bow, and then they sit down. Well, when the water came around to us, 5 of us kids, raised up in our seat a little bit, drank the water, and then bowed and sat down like we were being in communion, like we were taking part in communion. Well, the teacher thought this was sacrilegious. And that next recess, she kept 5 of us. There was, I think, 3 boys and 2 girls. And my cousin David was one of the other ones again. And 5 of us had done this, and we all got a whooping. And it was kind of funny because my parents didn't give me a whooping for that either. They didn't think it was necessary. They basically told me that this is just ridiculous, and the teacher's just going way overboard. She thought we were making a mockery out of church, making a mockery out of God, and my parents didn't agree. I don't agree either. I don't think we did anything wrong. We were just having fun, but she did not allow fun in her class.